Hello and a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining me, Influences of Times, on this very cold and quite chilly autumn afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and it's absolutely fascinating and just absolutely brilliant that I've managed to make it to this very next special edition of Influences of Times. So thank you once again for tuning in and for watching Influences of Times. Now, if you were watching a couple of weeks ago, and especially if you were watching yesterday when we did a live broadcast from our first well-known and notorious location in the beautiful Hertfordshire countryside, Minston Chapel. And I did say yesterday, and also a couple of weeks ago, if you've been following and continuing to watch me in this fascinating series of Influences of Times, you remember that we actually said that we would try and make it to our next location. In other words, part 2 of a very special edition of 2 back-to-back live episode broadcasts brought to you by 2 fascinating and notorious and well-known locations. And as you can see just by looking behind me, I'm very pleased to say that we've made it to our second location, and I have to say that it's taken an awful long time to get here, simply because we're in the middle of nowhere, and I mean literally in the middle of nowhere, in the beautiful Bedfordshire countryside. So it's absolutely my pleasure, as always, to have your company. Thank you so much for watching and for tuning, and I do apologise that this broadcast is reaching you very late in the afternoon. Obviously it's about 4:30 on Thursday afternoon, October 2016, but we're here. It's already starting to get a little bit, I wouldn't say dark, but the sun's actually just beginning to set. So it's a little bit chilly, but anyway, we're here and we're live. Okay, sorry about that. Signal keeps cutting out. Right, okay, we're live, we're on. I can see it's saying the connection's weak. So let's get cracking. So a very warm welcome to you to episode 14 of Influences of Times. So let's get started before we lose any more signal, and then we can go and have a look and let's get cracking. Okay, so yesterday we were at Minston Chapel, which was just outside Hitchin. In fact, we were in a tiny, or near a tiny village called Chapelfoot, which is near Preston, just outside Hitchin. Today I've travelled to this place here behind me. It's a beautiful place. Now, this location is known as St Mary's Church, or it's more commonly known as Clophill Church. Now, Clophill Church, this one behind me, is literally about a 5-minute walk away from a tiny village called Clophill. And it's actually a couple of miles away. In fact, what I had to do is I had to travel all the way from Hertfordshire by bus and then walk from one village to another village. So I've walked about 3.5–4 miles to get to Clophill, to get to here. So you can kind of see how long it's taken to get here. It really kind of is in the middle of nowhere. It's in a beautiful location. It's actually on top of a hill which overlooks the Bedfordshire countryside. So we're out of Hertfordshire and we're now in Bedfordshire. And this church behind me, or what's left of it, is a very notorious and very well-known abandoned and derelict church. It's also slightly ruined. However, there is a lot more to see than Minston Chapel. So let's give you a little bit of history, and then we'll go and have a look, and I'll explain all the little bits and pieces. There's not much to see. However, you can see, if I move to the side, you can see there's a nice church left behind there. And I've memorised all the different parts of what would have been the original church. So, St Mary's Church, or more commonly known as Clophill Church, was actually built in around the 1300s. I think it was something like 1340 something or 1350 something. You have to excuse me because I've literally only memorised everything within 5 or 10 minutes, so I'm doing my best to try and remember all the information for you. But you're more than welcome to Google Clophill Church. It was built in around the 1300s. So I'll give you an idea of how old this church is. It's several hundred years old. It was used as a church, and it was in full use, and all the local people of Clophill would obviously use this church. Now, right up until, I believe it was something like the 19th century. So if you fast forward from the 1300s right up to the 19th century, it was used as a church. However, what happened was they had to expand because the amount of people who gathered in this church became so great. There was insufficient space. So what they had to do is they had to enlarge it slightly. So in the 19th century they expanded and made an extra piece. So they added on a west gallery, and they added on a piece to the east chancel part of the church to make it slightly larger. And it was used right up until, like I said, the 19th century, when it became basically the church was insufficient to contain the people who would gather here for services and that kind of thing. It became abandoned or derelict in the 1800s. So we're now going from the 1300s right up to the 1800s. So I can't remember the exact year, and I'm ever so sorry that I can't remember everything exactly, but it was in the 1800s. I think it was something like 1864 or 1868, somewhere around there, which is when they began to disuse this church behind me. And what they actually did, rather than replace this church, because obviously they can't, and believe it or not, you can't see it, but we'll have a look in a minute, there's actually a graveyard around this church. Now, I've never ever seen a graveyard like this one here. Firstly, I've never broadcast from a kind of church chapel. I know Munsden Chapel was a chapel, however, as you saw yesterday, that was in absolute ruins. Sorry, I've got lots of little bugs and flies on me, excuse me, they seem to like me today. But there's obviously this one's a little bit more intact, but the graveyard that's connected to this church, I've never seen anything like it, and we'll have a look in a minute. Now, just to explain that to you, all the gravestones are original. They're all still here from what I can tell. There's obviously a lot of broken and fallen over tombstones. However, there's a graveyard just over the other side, and we'll have a look in a minute. That one's okay, but the one that's actually here from as early back as when this started, all the tombstones are in a straight line, and they're all pushed right up, not against a wall but against the hedge. So you can imagine, rather than having a graveyard or tombstones like we know to be in front or beside each other in lines, these are literally all pushed along the wall, almost like as if somebody's literally got their hands and pushed everything right up against the wall. And they're literally not stacked, they're side by side, literally like this, like cards in a way. And they're literally just lined across this whole wall just behind you. There's a couple of tombstones, we'll have a look in a minute, we'll have a good look around the graveyard. There's a couple that are really, really overgrown just under the trees. Some of the tombstones are so overgrown and so old that you can't even see them. Some of them, I mean, I accidentally almost stepped on them because they're just covered by nettles and brambles and Mother Nature and, you know, the kind of undergrowth. But the graveyard stretches round the back. Now, the back part of the graveyard is as me and you know a graveyard to be. They're more kind of staggered stones. As you go right at the far end, there's a couple of gravestones right under the tree, just 3 or 4 on their own, nothing else, just right in the far corner. And then as you go around the back or the other side of the church, and literally as you come around the front of the church, as I mentioned, all the headstones, all the coffins are literally side by side. So they're literally lined. It's almost like a line, almost like a wall of tombstones. It's very, very strange. I've never seen anything like it. I've just never seen them laid like they am. That could be because of the way the church goes up on a slight hill. It might have something to do with the ground, I don't know. But it literally does look like everything's just been pushed right up against the back, apart from these obscure kind of ones that are dotted around the back here. But the ones to my side, to my right, which over that way and around the back there, they're just all lined up. But we'll have a good look around in a minute. So that's kind of a bit, to me, a bit strange. I've never seen tombstones laid like that, and they're in such a poor state, as you would imagine they would be. They're in a really poor state. So let's continue with the church. So we came up to the 19th century. They enlarged certain parts of this church behind me to make room and to make it enlargement. The church actually then, as I mentioned, in the 1800s, that's when it became derelict, that's when it became abandoned. Now, it wasn't just because it was beginning to demolish, and obviously through natural causes it began to crumble and things, but because of the space. So what they did is they actually built another church. They built another St Mary's Church, which is still here to this day. St Mary's Church, actually in the village of Clophill, which is about 5 minutes away. Now, it's obviously completely different from this one behind me. So this is the original St Mary's Virgin Church, and the new one is now in the village. What they did is they took the bells from this church, and they took them and they placed them in the new church. The old bells that were originally here are now in the new church. And that's when they came up with, you can probably hear that, there's actually, sorry, there's a massive helicopter flying over. There's a RAF base, RAF Henlow, a couple of miles away. So we've had a couple of American military helicopters, gunships, Apache gunship helicopters flying over. It's the second one that's come over. Hopefully you can still hear me. So that's what they did. They took the bells over to the new church, and that's when they adopted the name St Mary's Virgin Church, this one. Okay, so you've got the original one, and they replaced it with the new St Mary's Church in the village. Now, let me just get my bearings, let me just remember the information. Now, let's come up to the 1960s. So now coming up to the 1960s, there was a spat. In fact, there was a huge media mass spat. And basically what was happening, people were coming in here and actually desecrating the coffins. They were desecrating the gravestones. They were desecrating the bodies. And there were actual reports that people, I'm not going to say their names, I'm not going to say who they were or how old, whether they were male or female, but there were people who were actually taking remains of the human beings laid at rest here, and were actually caught playing with the remains of these people in the village. So that's what was happening. There was a huge spat of graveyard desecrations. People coming in here, kicking the tombstones over, breaking them, stealing the body parts, stealing the skull in particular is one of the most readable reports, and actually using and playing with those parts in the village. So people were caught playing with human remains. That's when things like security or the police and that kind of thing tightened the area. Now, not only that, in the 1960s, after that, there was another spat of other different things that happened. Now, I'm sure, as with every location that I've been to, and I'm sure with Munston Chapel and other ones, even though we don't hear or read about them, I'm sure there is always two sides to every story. Now, in particular, this church here has been known to have rituals. Now, Halloween is a very popular time of year when people seem to come here and carry out satanic rituals. So there was not only after the body desecration, there was a spat of satanic and very, I wouldn't say demonic, but satanic rituals and that kind of thing. So people would come here, black magic as well. Okay, so this church has been subject to satanic, well, I suppose in a way satanic rituals, but also you've got the black magic as well. So this church is actually seeing quite a lot of negative stuff as well. Now, that's not why I've come here. I've come here simply because, as I've said before, I want to carry out and I want to visit and bring you to every single derelict and abandoned location, and this is certainly one of them. This is definitely an abandoned and derelict ruined church. So I just want to clarify that that's not why I've come here. I haven't come here based upon the fact that it's had that negative side to it. However, it's been subject to negative opportunities, and they've been carried out here. Now, very briefly, because those rituals and those satanic rituals and those negative things which people have done here, the police actually patrol here on a regular basis. In fact, since I've been here for the last hour and a half, I've already had a police patrol car parked at the gate, just making sure nothing's happening. They do keep a very close eye on it, and it's not only because of what's happened here for rituals and stuff, but it's also the body desecration. So they really have tightened up security now. They've actually closed this church from dusk till dawn. So through the night you are not allowed in this church or in these grounds, simply because there's been lots of paranormal investigations, there's been lots of rituals carried out. Halloween in particular, people come here and carry out black magic, witchcraft and that kind of thing. So you can kind of get an idea that there's a kind of negative side and history behind this church, as well as the information or the interesting information which I'm more interested in, which is the history behind it. But that's kind of a little bit of history for you. So we've had a patrol car here already checking out to make sure. Now they could see me because I was taking photographs, and they were happy with that. They didn't come and speak to me, they just patrolled and made sure everything was okay. But yes, you're not allowed here during the night time. You are not allowed in here at all. Now every day between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. the warden comes up here and actually allows you to go up inside that church tower. Now there's a gate, and in fact what they've done, just to add a little bit more, because this church has been subject to so much interest, paranormal and other things, they've actually installed CCTV cameras on the church. There's a number of them outside. So there are CCTV cameras up here, so they basically survey the church. The church is under surveillance 24/7. Sorry, cut out again, just to make sure everything's okay. So I'm trying to pick the signal up. It's come back a bit now, so I'm so sorry it keeps cutting out. I'm just hoping it's not going to do it too much. So what I've done is I've picked you up and I've come a bit closer to the church. So there's actually CCTV cameras installed on that church, just to make sure that everything's okay. Now, as I mentioned, the warden comes every day, and you're actually allowed to go in that tower between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. You can go up some spiral stairs up into the tower. It's locked by an iron gate any other time, so obviously we're not going to be able to go up there, but you can go up there. Okay, how's about, I'm going to show you the gravestones. Let's have a little look at the gravestones. Hopefully we're not going to lose the signal, and then we're going to have a really good look at the church. I'll take you inside, and I've memorised all the different parts, all the different things which would have been there, so you can kind of get an image, if you like. As we're looking around, you can picture how it would have been. Let's go and have a look at these tombstones, because you might find that interesting. Now, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I don't want anybody to think I'm being morbid or anything else, but I do want to give you an idea of what this place is like, not only inside but outside as well. Let's go and have a look at these tombstones, and you'll see what I mean. We've got lots of helicopters and stuff flying out, and do you know what? Just very, very briefly, it was actually really, really nice, and you can see the sun setting. It's actually quite pretty up here now. There was a little bit of a shower, a little bit of rain earlier on, and as I was taking photographs inside, there was a lovely rainbow just in the middle of nowhere, and it was just over to my left, and it was about half a rainbow, but it's really vivid, and I caught some lovely images of that rainbow through these beautiful, where the windows would have been. See that big window there? And there's a big window at the back there. Now the rainbow was just coming through there in the distance, so I managed to get some nice photographs. So as always, I've taken lots and lots of photographs, both inside and outside, and they will be on Facebook later today or tomorrow, and they will be on my website page, www.camdronephotography.co.uk, and all the information, including some of the information that I haven't given today, will be there. So all the information and history about this church will be. We keep losing this signal. Maybe I should stay here and just spin the camera around. If I turn the camera around, can you see the stones? Can you see how they're all lined up? Now if I pick the camera up, there's actually a graveyard the other side. Can you see it? Just over there. Just there. Now it's actually beautiful, and it's obviously very new, because a lot of the graves have still got flowers and stuff on, and I only walked through there briefly. But it's actually very, very new. But these are the original tombstones from dating back as far back as the 1300s, the 1800s. But if I come a bit further this way, I'm just consciously aware of the fact that it says the signal's weak. But can you see how all the stones are lined? There, look, all the way up to the gate, right up to there. So they're all lined up. Literally. Now I've never seen stones lined up like that before. Just in a line. There's nothing in front of them. They're side by side. But it looks like somebody's come along and literally pushed them all against the wall, or against the hedge. So that's one thing, interesting thing about this place. Let's go this way. Now we're actually walking towards the rear of the church. But I'm not going to go in there, because I just don't want to lose the signal. Okay, and I've lost the signal already a couple of times already. See the way the sun's setting? It's really nice. Anyway, if I turn the camera around, this is looking behind the church. Can you see these ones here? Can you see how overgrown they are? And some of them are leaning. That one's leaning as well. But there's actually a couple there, and there's some right under the tree. See them? Just there. And you've got a couple and they're literally just dotted in the hedges. And believe it or not, there's actually graves in that. That's all brambles and nettles. And there's literally loads and loads of, I say loads and loads, there's quite a number of tombstones in there. They're just in there. But you can kind of get an idea of these tombstones. I mean, there's one, can you see that one in there? Look, there. That one, just in the middle of some trees. There's like 2 or 3 big trees and it's just underneath it. And there's one next to it there. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. I'm going to take you around the back of the church and we'll go around the other side where all the other tombstones are. And then we'll go around to the church. But if I just spin the camera around, you can see. So, I'm getting snagged a bit. What I'm going to do is, bear with me a second. I'm just going to lift the legs slightly so that we don't get, so I don't lose you. Okay, bear with me 1 second. So you can see the church, just there. So that's just give you an idea of what it's like. So there's actually people lying to rest behind me in there. It's quite sad in a way. And then you've got where we've just come from, so that's where we were. So that's where there's stones just in them trees, a couple in there, and you can see in the distance the way they're lined. Oh, there, just lined up. But there's no path there. There's nothing. It's just ground. It's just grass and ground, and they're literally just pushed. It's like as if somebody's just pushed everything. Okay, probably not a good idea for me to walk backwards. I wouldn't have thought so. How's about you do this? There we go. I know it means you have to look at me. I'm sorry about that. But I kind of want to see where I'm going. Okay. I'm going to spin this way. Now if I just turn around, can you see how some of them are just in there, look? There. There's a number of them just dotted. Right in there in the trees. Just a couple. It's just, it is sad in a way, because at the end of the day, them like, you know, they're people's relatives, and who's to say that their relatives and their relatives haven't passed away either? But it's just a shame that it's, I don't know, it's a shame how they've just been, it's just so overgrown. Anyway. Just pan the camera, so there's a couple just in the trees, just 1 or 2, just obsolete ones. Just in there, like you see that one? There. There's another one right under the tree. You can see it there, look, there, just touching it. And we come around the back here. And you've got these odd couple. Just, there's 1, 2, there's like 3, 4 in there. In fact, you can't even see the 4th one. The 4th one is a tiny headstone right in the back, just there, little tiny one. So they're kind of just like, they're just dotted. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take it into the far corner where you've got 2 or 3 just on their own, nothing else around them. They're under a tree. That's it. And then we'll go just up there where you'll see the line of them. And then we're going to go into the church, have a good look around, and I'll give you all the information I can in there. Then we'll finish. So you've got literally 1 stone on its own, just there. Can you see? There, look, there. Just 1. And right in the far corner, this is as far away from the church. See how far away I am from the church? And if I just spin it round? Okay. So they're saying the signal's weak, but can you see what I mean? There's just 1, 2, 3, 4. You see how they've just collapsed or fallen. So in time, that's going to fall over. Okay, I was getting worried then, because that really did cut off. I didn't think you were going to get me back. Okay, we're live, we're connecting. Brilliant. Okay, What I've done is I've actually come right up to the church in the hope that I'd get the signal. So I think it's best if I stay up here. But if I just show you very, very quickly. There we go, we've got a good signal now, that's good. Can you see what I mean about? Where are we looking? Can you see? If you look right over by the trees, can you see them just there, that all lined up? Literally just lined next to each other. And they go all the way down there. Some of them are so old you can barely see them. There they are. All there, look. Down. All the way down. Keep going. All the way down. Across the front. They're literally just lined up. You can see them just under the tree. There. All in a straight line. Just almost like circling the church, but I've just never seen gravestones like that, laid like that. Just, it's very, very strange. It just looks like they've just all been, not squashed, but just pushed away. Very odd. Anyway, you can probably see just beside me the church. So let's go have a look in this church for you. Okay, we're going to enter from the back end. Beautiful place. Okay, if I stand, here we go. It's a bit more interesting for you now. And what I'm going to do very, very, just while we're here, the view from up here, if I just lift this up, can you just see how far you can see in the distance? So you're now looking in Bedfordshire. It's right up on a hill, surrounded by this beautiful Bedfordshire countryside. You can literally see for miles and miles and miles. I can see just for miles. It's just right up on a hill. Anyway, the church. Let's go have a look. So we're now walking through the back of the church. If I stand, you can get an idea. So you can see how they've put fresh grass down. But there you go, here's the church. So let's go in and I'll describe what was what. We'll start from the front and we'll work backwards. Okay. Right, let's see if we can try that one again, shall we? See what happens when you go live. Okay, well, let's do that one again. We'll go in through the back of the church. Maybe I should walk a bit faster and we'll get more done. Okay, right, very quickly before it cuts out again. Okay, let's go straight to the front. Now, I'm not going to rattle through this too quick because I don't want it to be hasty, but let's see if we can get this done before we cut out too much more. So I'm going to stand here because so far we've got a good signal. Okay, so you're now looking towards the front of the church. Now, if I just give you an idea. Okay, so the main entrance to the church would have been here. That's the main entrance to the church. Now, bearing in mind, we're standing in a church that dates as back as 1300s, several hundred years old. Okay, so we've got the main door that would have been where they would have come in. You can see that they've got a door here, a metal door, which is under surveillance. That's the door that the warden opens between 10 AM and 2 PM, and you can go up a tiny spiral flight of steps that goes up into the tower. Now, if I walk forward and give you a look up, you'll see what's up there. Okay, so I'm going to pan the camera up and you'll see. Now, bear with me. I'm going to hold on to you so you don't fall off. Okay, can you see that? That is where you'll stand when you go up the stairway. So you'll come out up there and you'll stand. You'll go up, it looks like you go up another little, see that little spiral? That's a little spiral metal flight of steps that goes right to the top, and you stand up there and you can get a view of the whole of the church and Bedfordshire countryside. So that's where you can go between 10 AM and 2 PM. So the warden lets you go up there. Any other time it's locked and it's closed and it's under surveillance, so you cannot go up there. So that's up into the church tower. Now that obviously would have been where the original bells would have been up there, which are now in the new St Mary's Church in Clophill village. So that's where you enter. You can see clearly it says CCTV and it's under surveillance. Alright, so that's where you would have go in. Okay, this is where, so you've got stained glass window, would have been just here. And this would have been where the altar would have been. Now there's nothing here, I can just show you. If I just hold on to you carefully so you don't fall. I'm just conscious of the fact I don't want to flop the camera. Okay, let's try this. You can see it's just an empty space. If I move out of the way, you can just see it's just a rectangular space. That would have been where the altar would have been. So the high altar would have been here. So there would have been a high altar, a Bible, a cross, You know, I've mentioned this before when we went to Samuel Priory. You know, when you think of a high altar, it's usually like a giant marble kind of rectangular shaped. It's not a pillar, or it's kind of just like a high rectangular thing. So there would have been ceremonial items on that high altar. Like I said, I'm sure there was a Bible. There would have been usually a crucifix or some kind of a cross that would have been on there or near there. So we're standing where the high altar would have been. I'm just double checking. Yes, it is where the altar would have been. So that's here. Now if we come around this way, now I'm not going to look at that because I've memorised everything pretty much. This is where the chancel would have been. The chancel would have been just in this corner. You'll have to excuse, that's my bag, by the way, if you're wondering what that is. That's not from the 13th century or from the 1300s. Okay, we will get this broadcast done. We will. Trust me, we'll get it done. So as I said, my bag is recent, okay? It is from the 21st century. Let's move away a little bit because we're not having much luck, am we? Okay, so that's where the chancel would have been, just there. I can't remember what a chancel is. Can't remember. I'm just trying to rack my brains very, very quickly because I'm obviously aware I'm live. Chancel. I can't remember what a chancel is. It says it's there, but I can't remember what a chancel is. Anyway, that's where the chancel would have been. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we'll leave it at that, shall we? Okay, where I'm standing on these grass strips, these are where people would have sat. So I'm literally standing where pews would have been. There would have been rows and rows of pews on this strip of grass. That original path is the original path that would have run between the aisles. This is the original aisle that would have run in between two sections of pews. So pews would have run the full length of that strip of grass and this one here. Okay, so this is where people would have sat. So you can imagine being sat right here, and that would have been the high altar just in front of me. Okay, now you can see these massive, great big window shapes. There's two. There's one there and there's one there. So there's one on either side of both wings of this church. They were 5-panelled or 5-paned, massive, huge stained glass windows to let in sunlight, but they were stained glass as well. So there would have been 5 panels or panes in each of these huge windows. And we'll have a closer look at them. They're enormous. They're absolutely massive. So that would have been where they am. Now as we come over to this side, have a look over here. This is original. This is not something that's been added. Okay, this is original. Take a look here. Can you see that? Now there's 2 of them, but that is original. That's a remaining original design. So it hasn't been painted, hasn't been added on. That is original. And it's strange in a way because it feels like, and you can see it's original because it's been eaten away a bit. But that's original paint or dye. It looks like dye, the way, or like it does to me. Looks like a dye colour. It looks more like dye than paint, but that's original. Now, believe it or not, you can see. Can you see that line there? Can you see it? Now, it doesn't run any further down, but you can see this bit here. Right, that's where a small wooden staircase would have been that would have gone up to the pulpit, and it would have stood. It would have gone just there. Like you can see, it goes up a bit higher, and it would have come out just here. So it would have been a small, tiny flight of steps up to a pulpit, and it would have been roughly about here. So I give you an idea of about there, just here. So that would have been where the priest would have stood and would have given sermons. So he could have stood and faced and looked down at people. So that's where he would have preached, and that's where he would have been. Now there's no clues and there's no information about an organ. Okay, there is nothing in here. There's no clues, and there's certainly no information about there being any form of organ in this church. Not even, I mean, obviously the 1300s there wouldn't have been anyway, but even coming up to like the 19th century into like the 1800s, there was no organ in here. It was just hymns. So just people's voices, nothing else. Okay, but that's where the pulpit would have originally have been, and that's the only clue that that's where it would have been. Okay, so now you've got people would have sat here. So rows and rows and rows of pews. Okay, so now we come to the window. This is one of them. And if I move back a bit, you can probably get... so you can kind of see how big it is. So you can get an idea. I mean, it's absolutely massive. If I put my hand there, you can see the scale of the window size. Alright, so you can get an idea of the scale of it. Massive. There would have been 5 massive panels or panes in that arch-shaped stained glass window. Excuse me. And we've got another one that side. Okay, and even if I'm standing in front of it, even if I'm standing in front of it, you can see the size difference between me and it. So it gives you an idea of how big it was. Now the roof. Obviously there's no roof. There was nothing special about the roof. It was just a normal pointy. I'm just gonna, maybe I should, okay. I was gonna put you down, but I'm just gonna hold it. So you can imagine like a V-shaped roof. You can see that just by there. So there was nothing in the roof. Okay, there was nothing special about it. It was just a normal V-shaped roof that went right up. And now you can probably just make out in that far corner there, look, see that wooden beam? That's all that's left of what would have been upstairs. And they've now placed a cross and a plaque there saying, "In God we trust." Or to the glory of God is what it says, actually. Sorry. Okay, and that's now looking up to the original bell tower there. So you can see the flight of steps through that tiny window at the top where you can come out and have a look. Okay. Right. Now then, unbeknown to me, there were 2 floors to this church. But the second floor only come out as far as where I'm standing. Okay, so if you can imagine, from me looking back that way, as far as there, where the grass ends, was just 1 floor. A second floor come out right where I'm standing. And the reason for that is, if you look behind me, you can see what's left of where the second floor would have come out. So those tiny holes, or those holes in the wall, there's 2 there, and there's none in the other side. The other ones have been either filled in or they're just not there. But those 2 holes, there's one. Actually, there's just one. I thought that was another one up there. It's just a colour of a brick. But that is what's left of the platform that would have been a second, like a balcony. So there would have been a balcony. And that balcony was only for men. It wasn't for women. So I'm not saying that women were only allowed to sit down here. Men and women were. However, men were only allowed to sit on that balcony. Nobody else. No children, nothing. Just men. Men only. And in the far corner, and there's no way of finding out. Right here, right where I'm standing in this very, very corner, and you've got a tiny. Where has it gone? You can see that tiny little door, kind of like a little archway. Now I don't know if that would have been an original window that's just been filled in, or whether I'm not quite sure. It doesn't say. The images don't really say. But right where I'm standing, there would have been a flight of steps here, a wooden flight of steps, a very small wooden flight of steps. They weren't circular, they weren't spiral, they were straight, and they went straight at an angle up to the balcony. And so I would have been standing under the balcony, and that massive big archway would have been the rear entrance to the church. Now it may have been a door and then a window above it, so I'm not saying that was just one big door, but it wasn't a big window. It was a door and a window above it, but that would have been the rear entrance into the church. And the only remaining part of that is the original wooden concrete slab that would have entered in from the back of the church. We have got that. Can you see that behind me there? Now if you go outside, you can't see that. So I don't think that was, I don't know, it may have been, it could have been a door, but if I just turn the camera around, you've got this here. Now that's not a metal hinge or anything, I don't know, but that may have been, I was thinking maybe a doorway through here and comes out up there, possibly. But there was a staircase there, so there wouldn't have needed to have been, unless the staircase was here and it went from there up to, I don't know, it doesn't say. The information, the drawings that I've looked at and the research I've done suggest the staircase was in this corner, so I don't actually know what that was for. or what that was for. However, there's a possibility that maybe the staircase was from here to there, and that's how you got from this part to the platform above where only men were allowed to sit. So there were rows up on that platform. A small flight of steps went from the men's platform up to another platform, only a short flight, and that was only children only. In fact, it was a boys only platform. So we had ground level, men and boys sat in that corner over there. So you come up this flight of steps onto the men's level, and then another flight of steps, and boys only sat in that corner. Only boys, no girls, no females, just boys, and they sat up there. And there was a tiny flight of steps behind them that led down all the way back to the ground floor. Okay, that's also where the hymns were sang from. So the choir that would have been up there, so it would have been just above. I think, in fact, if I remember correctly, you had the men, then you had the boys in that corner, and the choir sat in this corner. A little section, little chaired section, little pew section where the choir sang, and that's it. So I'll kind of give you an idea of how this church was laid out. Okay, that's really all I can show you. There's not really much else that I can say apart from what I've just told you. And like I said, as always, you're more than welcome to go. In fact, I'm going to stay here because maybe I should go at the back and go back outside a minute. But you can kind of get an idea. And what I'm going to do, I just want to stand in the middle. But as I mentioned, you're more than welcome to go on Google, look up Clophill Church and find out for yourselves. But I have taken lots of photographs, including that diagram and the board that's near the entrance. So all that will be on Facebook and on my website page. So you can read for yourselves, and you can look on Google anyway. You don't have to just rely on me. But I just love bringing you into these places and actually physically showing you where things are and pointing things out. Because yesterday, you might not actually get to come here. Maybe you've never seen this before. Or maybe you've been here but you just didn't know things were that way. That's my job. So, I'm now going to give you a little bit of a spin around so that you can see before we finish. Okay? So you can get an idea. So that's where the boys would have sat up there. The back of the church. That's where the staircase would have been, and the men would have sat up there, over the back there. That's possible, as I mentioned. There may have been a door and a window, so the men wouldn't have been right up there. They would have been at this level here, probably, like I said, where that square hole is. So that could have been a door and windows above, which would have meant the platform could have been roughly here. Obviously, it would have been about 8 to 10 feet above the ground or so. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea. I'm going to just reach out a bit more and just give you, because I really do like to give you guys, and it's all very well looking at me and listening to me, but that is Clophill Church. It's actually quite a picturesque church, if I'm honest. It's the first proper church that I broadcast from, and it's actually quite a picturesque kind of church, not only because it's fairly intact, although it is abandoned and derelict. And when I say abandoned and derelict, obviously people come here every day because you can tell it's got grass, it's got brand new turf down, there's gravel on the ground, so people do come here, people walk their dogs, people walk through here and come in here, but it is abandoned and derelict in the sense it's no longer used. Okay, so it's not totally abandoned, however it's abandoned and derelict because it's a disused and ruined church, and ruined by the sense of its ruins, the remains of something. So that is Clophill Church. So hopefully you found that interesting. I'm just so sorry about all the glitches and blips and everything else. Not all the times we lost the signal. I lost the signal more times today than all of my broadcasts put together, I think. But anyway, so just to point out again, we've got another one there, look, see that? If I just come there you go, you can see it a bit better. I'll bring you in closer. See? What's left on the wall? So you've got another one there. And you've actually got another one, and it's only this side of the church, right underneath the window there. So you've got three. You've got the far one, middle, and over there. Now I haven't had time to Google what that means. Obviously there's a meaning to it. I have no idea. It could be a negative thing, or it may actually be a positive thing. I don't know. I've not actually had time to Google. But they're like, you can see they're like red crosses, but they're slightly shaped. They're not just a cross. Now, when I walked around this site earlier today, I was looking at all the different bricks. There's lots and lots and lots of inscriptions, lots. But none of them, from what I can tell, are original inscriptions from anybody dating earlier than the 21st century. So there's a lot of people that have come in here and inscribed their initials into the brickwork, either by by force. I mean, I don't mean just scratching with a stone, I mean literally engraving. Okay, somebody texted me, oh no, actually, sorry, somebody sent me an email then, so the broadcast paused. Okay, we will get there eventually, and I'm nearly finished. You'll be pleased to know I'm nearly finished. Okay, so they've been inscribed by force. Some of the inscriptions, believe it or not, that far window right down there, look, that one, on both sides, there's inscriptions of initials, and again, they've been used with force. So it's possible at some point somebody's managed to climb up there and really force their initials in, which is a bit of a shame, but you're going to get graffiti and you're going to get that kind of thing happening in abandoned and derelict places. And in fact, another reason why this broadcast is so late coming to you is because when I came here, there was a group of teenagers in here who were probably more fascinated in what I was doing than what they were doing. They were just hanging around and laying in the window frames and just kind of chilling out and stuff. But I kind of had to wait for them to leave because it's a bit off-putting when I'm trying to broadcast to you with all these people kind of there. It's not embarrassing, but it kind of puts you off a little bit. But they were really interested in what I was doing anyway, so that's another reason why the broadcast was late coming to you, because they were here. I just wanted to wait for them to go so that I could have free roam of this church, uninterrupted, sort of, and broadcast to you live without them kind of being in it, because I don't really want other people in it. Not really. Okay, let's go at the back of the church and we're going to finish. So we're now walking back out the rear of the church. So we're now coming into the grounds again. So there we go. Sun is setting. It's getting chilly. But what a beautiful location. You can see as I'm walking away from the church, you can see just how picturesque this place really is. It really is quite a beautiful little church. It's just such a shame about the gravestones that are just set in such a strange way. But you can see, like I mentioned earlier, all lined up across there. But you can see it's pretty, the way the sun's setting, it's just shining on the church there behind me. So, you'll be pleased to know we're going to finish now before we cut off and lose each other again. But as always, thank you so much for joining me, Influencers of Times, as we continue to bring you into the very heart of Britain's most abandoned and derelict places. And it's my absolute pleasure and joy, as always, to bring you to these fascinating places, to give you first-hand live coverage from every possible location where possible, as well as take fascinating photographs and close-up pictures and all the rest of it, to just give you an insight into Britain's most abandoned and derelict places, these places that are so very quickly diminishing from our world. As time goes by, they are slowly but surely decreasing, and Munston Chapel is definitely one of those places that in 50 years time I'm sure it's probably not even going to be what it is today. So it's my pleasure and joy to have brought you to one of Bedfordshire's most notorious and well-known abandoned and derelict churches. So from me and from Clophill Church, you have a wonderful, amazing afternoon and evening, what's left of it. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. So this Saturday coming, as I mentioned yesterday, and for those of you who are watching today that didn't watch yesterday, or to save you from watching yesterday, join me on Saturday. Now, it's possible I may have some company with me on Saturday, which would be really great, because I really enjoyed having my sister with me yesterday. So if you're watching, sister, a very big hi to you. It was lovely to have your company yesterday. So hopefully you'll join me again, sister, on Saturday, where we will be broadcasting live from one of Cambridge's most abandoned and derelict, fascinating mansions. Okay, now I'm not going to give you an idea of where the mansion is, but it is a fascinating location, and hopefully there's going to be one or two secrets left in the back garden somewhere. So hopefully you'll tune in to find out what those secrets are. And if they're still there, they're going to make fascinating finds. Okay, obviously they've been seen by the people, but for myself, every location I've been to, there's never really been anything more than the location itself. But I'm hoping there's going to be a couple of hidden secrets in the back garden just for me and you to have a look at. So join me Saturday. If I don't see you on Saturday, I will see you very soon next week. In fact, I will be doing 2 live broadcasts. So Saturday will be episode 15. And then next week, I'm not sure if it's going to be Monday or through next week, I'll be doing 2 live broadcasts. Hopefully 2. First one will be from live from a abandoned and derelict pub which hasn't been used for nearly 500 years. We will be broadcasting from that pub back in our base near Birmingham, and then a couple of days later, or maybe the day after, obviously I won't be doing 2 in the same day, but in the same week I'll be doing another live broadcast from another location. I'm not going to say what that location is or where it is. I'm going to let you find out. So hopefully you'll join me for another fascinating episode. That'll be episode 16. Wowza, how time flies. So we've been on air for nearly 2 or 3 months already. And as I mentioned yesterday, things are looking up, not only in the sense of the locations, and I'm going to be taking you all over the country. Now then, just to give you an idea. In particular, I'm going to be taking you to Sheffield. Sheffield is absolutely amazing for derelict and abandoned place. There are some absolutely extraordinary places in Sheffield. We're going to be going to lots of different places in Sheffield. We're going to be going to Yorkshire, beautiful Yorkshire Dales. We're going to be going into the Yorkshire Hills. There are some fascinating abandoned and derelict places in Yorkshire. I'm going to be taking you to lots of places there. I'll be taking you as far away as I possibly can, which is right down the west side of the country. So I'll be taking you all the way down to West Wales, to beautiful Milford Haven in the Pembrokeshire coastline, down in the Pembrokeshire coast. We'll be going down there for a very, very special edition of Influence of the Times, when we will be celebrating our anniversary now. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be our year anniversary or whether it be, I don't know. So I'd like to tie it in for a year. So that could be probably towards the middle of next year, but we'll see how it goes. But I'll be taking you to a very, very special, amazing location down in beautiful Milford Haven, down in the Pembrokeshire coastline. So down there, right down the west coast. We're going to be going all the way down to Kent. We're going to be going all the way across to Yorkshire, as I mentioned already. We're going to be going all over the place. We're going to be going a little bit further north. So we will be going up towards Bradford. We'll be covering Leeds. We'll be covering Manchester. We'll be covering Liverpool. We'll be travelling all over the United Kingdom to bring you to every single possible derelict and abandoned location I could possibly think of and find, so that you can see for yourselves just what amazing hidden secrets there are in this fascinating country in which we live. So until then, because I've got some company coming now, until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully I'll be seeing you on Saturday. If not, I'll see you next week, and soon, in the next couple of weeks, month or 2, we'll start streaming and live broadcasting from my brand new HD camcorder, which means the sound picture quality will be better for you. And also we've got a brand new channel coming up on our YouTube channel. So Influence of the Times has got a YouTube channel, and on there we'll be posting and streaming some of those broadcasts. But I will notify you of if it's going to be Facebook or YouTube. But we will be starting to stream and broadcast live on YouTube, because Influence of the Times wants to reach as many people as possible. So you have a great evening. You take care. I'm going to now make my trek all the way back to where I came from. Well, not quite Birmingham. That would be a long way. That would be a long trek. But I'm going to head back to where my sister is,